So I'm not really particular. Some people cut their fish in a particular way. Sometimes I'll case the whole fish with no cuts in it at all, and then after I tan it, I'll cut it wherever I want to. Sometimes I'll cut it down the back, and sometimes once I've tried cutting it down this way. It doesn't matter to me, I can use the skin anyway. Now the skin on a fish is a lot like an animal hide. It just has this little layer of like stringy fibers that hold it onto the meat. So I just take my fingers in there and loosen that skin. Just hold on to it and it all peels off. And then you have to remove, there's fat and meat on here, so you have to remove that. So I use a scraper. I used to use a spoon. When I first started scraping, I went through my whole kitchen drawer testing spoons, and it really got me interested in looking at a lot of tools and collections, because it really makes a difference, your tool that you use. When I looked in our collection of Aleutic tools, a lot of the scrapers are made with bones or antler. So this one here was made by a friend of mine, and she made it out of antler. And antler holds a really nice edge. In doing all these processing, you learn so much. You learn where the skin's fatty, you learn where it's thin, you learn where it's thick when you go to scrape the other side. A lot of the scales, these scales will come out. You can see they're coming out already, but the scales in the lateral line really hang on. Before I did this, I never realized how fatty a fish skin was. It's really beautiful. All the oils, the way the light reflects off the scales, the way it feels, you know, and the fibers peeling off the skin, and just everything about it I love. This gray stuff on the back side of the skin, I try and scrape most of that off. When I do fish skin leather, I cut the fin out, because in the fin there holds a lot of fat in there. So you end up with a hole, and so before I tan, when I start my tanning process, because it requires a lot of physical manipulation and stretching, when I go to stretch, this part doesn't get stretched. So what I do is I'll get a piece of skin, like maybe here, that's sticking out, and I'll cut that off, or I'll cut a piece from here, and I'll sew a patch in there with sinew. So after this, I spend time washing it. Sometimes it takes 3-4 days to wash, and what I do is do a lot of my initial washing. I'll put Dawn soap on it, and I'll rub it in, and then I'll rinse it. And then I'll put soap on it again, like a dishwashing soap or something with a degreaser, and I'll really work it in, and then I'll rinse it. And I'll rinse it really good. When it no longer looks like it's super oily, then I'll take and I'll put it in a container, and I'll put it in with some degreasing liquid cleaner again, and I'll shake it up, and then I'll let it soak in there for a little bit. And then probably three times a day, I'll rinse it, change the water, put new soap in. And then I dry it up a little bit, get a lot of the moisture out. And then I get brain from any animal, and I'll whip it up with water, hot water, and then I'll put the skin in it. Or sometimes I'll just take and I'll turn the fish skin over, and I'll get a pastry brush. I'll put the brain on it, and then put it all over, and I'll let it soak there get it good and wet, and I'll let it soak there for maybe an hour, and then I'll just fold it together and fold it up like this, and then I'll wrap it up in like a wax paper, and then I'll put it in a Ziploc baggie, and then it'll be all ready. When I do have time to physically manipulate it, I'll just take it right out of the freezer. After it's in the brain, then I take it out and I blot all the excess liquid out again. And then and then you just start letting it dry. You just go over every inch of your skin, and you have to not let those fibers dry together. So you keep them moving around. So what they do is they move around, and that's why your skin ends up soft, is because you're moving around and you're not letting them dry up together. So you just stretch like this. Of course, you don't have to do it as much when it's super wet, you know, because you're not doing a whole lot to it. The important part is in the last 3 hours that it's drying. So I just go around, and this is how I just go and stretch. And it'll start to dry, and it'll start to harden. And the parts that harden first, you have to like really concentrate on working those. And it takes me 8 to 10 hours of physical manipulation to turn it into a leather. This process is all about knowing how it feels at certain points before you can move on to the next step. So it's a lot about what it feels like.